In this video, I am taking a look at the Nonikkor-MC 11mm F1.8 for APS-C cameras. An ultra-wide-angle lens with an impressive f1.8 aperture, designed by Artra Lab. It's a modern take on vintage classic lenses, if that makes sense. With both its design and name, it clearly pays homage to Ai and Ai-S Nikkor lenses from the late 70s and early 80s. This gives it a desirable aesthetic for nostalgic photographers and manual focus enthusiasts, especially fans of classic Nikon glass, even if they don't shoot Nikon today. Let's see how it performs. I tested this lens on a 22-megapixel Nikon ZF-C. You can find this review as a written blog post on our blog site, where you'll find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. Most of the sample images in high resolution are available on a separate site. I leave links to the blog post and the sample images in the description below. Here are the specifications of this lens. You can pause the video to take a closer look or check out our blog post for a more detailed overview. I'd like to thank Artra Lab, who kindly provided this lens for test and review purposes. Although, as usual, this is a completely independent review. Handling and build quality. The Artra Lab Nonikkor 11mm F1.8 is a fully manual lens with no electronic contacts, meaning no autofocus, no aperture control from the camera, and no EXIF data transmission. The lens features an all-metal construction with an aluminum alloy body and a brass lens mount. The focus ring is nicely damped and turns smoothly over 130 degrees. The distance markings in meter and feet are engraved and filled with paint. Next is a color-coded depth of field scale, along with an infrared focus mark on the barrel. The aperture ring has full stop clicks with engraved aperture values filled with paint. Unlike most Chinese manual focus lenses, the aperture values on the ring are evenly spaced, similar to classic Nikon lenses. However, there is a major difference between this lens and classic Ai lenses. There is no f5.6 marking, and it's not a mistake. Even more peculiar, my tests showed that moving from one aperture click to the next does not always result in a precise doubling or halving of the light passing through the aperture. From f1.8 to f2.8, the light decreases by 1/3 EV. From f2.8 to f4 by another 1/3 EV. Then from f4 to f8, only one click stop for 2 f-stops, the light decreases by another 2/3 of EV. From f8 to f11 by 1 EV, from f11 to f16 by 1.3 EV, and finally from f16 to f22 by 2.3 EV. This indicates that while the aperture stops are marked and clicked equidistantly, the actual light transmission changes irregularly. The lens features a minimal fixed petal-shaped hood and a bulbous front element, which prevents filters from being mounted directly. However, the metal front cap attached by friction can be converted to a filter adapter. Optical features. Sharpness near infinity. For the infinity sharpness test, we look at 3 areas of the image: center, midframe, and corner. Center sharpness is good wide open at f1.8, improving gradually when stopped down. It becomes very good at f4 and excellent at f11. Diffraction reduces sharpness at f16, and by f22 it drops significantly. Midframe sharpness is mediocre at wider apertures, only reaching a good level by f11. It improves further at f16 but deteriorates at f22 due to diffraction. Corner sharpness is weak, but improves to a usable level when stopped down, though it never becomes truly good. Sharpness at portrait distance. Let's look at the points of interest for portraits at portrait distance, the center, the inner circle, and the outer circle. At portrait distance, around 0.6 meter for this lens, sharpness is very good in the center at f1.8, but noticeably weaker outside the center. Center sharpness becomes excellent at f2.8, but unfortunately the inner and outer areas don't improve enough to achieve good sharpness, not even at f4. Close-up sharpness. The trend here is similar to what we saw with infinity sharpness, very good at f1.8, excellent from f2.8 to f11. There is a slight dip at f16, which becomes more pronounced at f22, significantly reducing sharpness. Lens distortion. The lens distortion is very good, as you can hardly see any, virtually a zero distortion lens. Vignetting. The Nonikkor 11mm F1.8 has extreme vignetting. Stopping down helps slightly, but even at f8, the light fall-off remains significant. While you can fix it in post, this lens has some of the highest vignetting you'll find around. Focus shift and aberrations. The Nonikkor 11mm F1.8 suffers from a modest amount of longitudinal chromatic aberration wide open at f1.8. It improves significantly by stopping down one click to f2.8, is almost gone at f4 and disappears completely at f8. It also exhibits some lateral chromatic aberration as seen in this image, but can be corrected easily in post. Flare resistance. The Nonikkor-MC 11mm F1.8, as the name suggests, is a multi-coated lens. Its multi-coating effectively reduces veiling flare, producing contrasty images with rich colors in most situations. However, flare resistance leaves a lot to be desired. While it handles veiling flare fairly well, ghosting flare of all kinds appears easily in various situations. Comma. The Nonikkor 11mm F1.8 suffers from comma at wider apertures. To get rid of it, you need to stop down to f8. Sun stars. The Nonikkor 11mm F1.8 produces nice, well-defined sun stars at f22. It can also create them at smaller apertures starting from f8, but they are less defined. Focus breathing. This lens exhibits small but noticeable amount of focus breathing. Bokeh. An APS-C 11mm lens equivalent to 16mm on full-frame cameras is nothing to expect nice bokeh from, but at very close distances you can get some background blur. Even at extremely close distances, the background blur is busy though. Conclusion and sample images. First things that I like. The center sharpness, lens distortion control, the vintage look, veiling flare resistance. Things that are not bad but are not very good either are chromatic aberrations, sun stars, comma, focus breathing, and the price. Things with room for improvement: vignetting, sharpness off-center, ghosting flare resistance. Artra Lab has clearly aimed to replicate a vintage lens, and they have succeeded, both in appearance and performance. Let's get this out of the way. This isn't a lens for pixel peepers. Optically, it can't compete with modern top-tier glass. However, as a retro-style lens, it offers very good to excellent center sharpness, contrast, colors, and zero distortion, placing it on the same level as high-quality vintage lenses. Besides, there have never been APS-C vintage lenses, and even in the full-frame world, you won't find any rectilinear vintage lenses as wide as this one's 16mm equivalent focal length. Stop-down, sharpness is solid across most of the frame, with high contrast and rich colors. The lack of distortion makes this lens a great choice for architectural photography. If you are into vintage lenses, both in terms of aesthetics and rendering, you really can't go wrong with this lens. The design nails the classic Nikon Ai, Ai-S look, which many love. Handling is also reminiscent of a new AI lens, with smooth manual focusing and a click aperture ring, though light transmission per click is a bit unusual. Additionally, since vintage APS-C lenses were never made, this is the only way APS-C users of Nikon Z, Fujifilm and Canon cameras can achieve that classic vintage look and feel. As mentioned earlier, this review is also available in written format on our blog, where you will find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. I've also listed a few alternatives at the end of the article for those interested. Most of the sample images are available in high resolution on a separate site, and you'll find links to both the blog post and sample images in the description below. If you are thinking about buying this lens, you can support our work by using the links in the description. It won't cost you anything extra or affect the price, but it helps us a little. You can also donate to support the channel. A huge thanks for watching. Your comments are always welcome. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Until the next video, have a fantastic time, everyone.